Hello and good evening, Chicago. Welcome on into another episode of Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Got a great episode in store for you tonight. Lots to be going over. The NFL Combine has come and gone. So many players to break down, so many things to go over, so much that we're actually going to get some help. Kayle Henderson of Sin City Sports is going to stop by and join us to help go through things, both from just a player perspective and also from a little bit of a front office perspective as well. We'll talk some strategy as well. That's coming up. And then Illinois and Northwestern are going to be playing in town at United Center this weekend in the Big Ten tournament. Who's going to do what? Northwestern's the 2 seed. Could they actually win the Big Ten? Holy cow! When even is the last time that happened? We'll talk that. Or is Illinois going to burst their bubble a little bit? We will talk about that as well. And then, as I predicted, Patrick Kane is no longer with us. Tuesday was a hard day for me. We will say goodbye to one of the most memorable athletes in Chicago history. All that and more coming up right here on Chi-Town Weekly. Buckle on up, everybody. Let's go. And hello and good evening, everyone. I am your host, Adam Karnick. Glad that you are here with us tonight, ready to talk all things Chicago sports. Got a huge show in store for you tonight. Lots to go over, lots to be doing, lots to be going through. Let's just kind of jump into this a little bit here. Of course, here on IE Sports Radio, we are available for you on all of the major social platforms, whether that is Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We are here, all the major platforms for you. We are here for you. Just search at IE Sports Radio, and you can find us in all those. This show is also available for you on this show is also available to you on Twitter at IESRC. I am available for you also on Twitter at Adam_Karnick on Twitter. And we can interact and have some fun back and forth that way. Sorry, as we had to do getting some technical things changed around here. Sorry, improvising on the fly a little bit here tonight. So, and then if you are listening live here on this Monday evening, be sure to hop on into the chat room, make yourself a little account. You can hop on in and join us that way. Taryn Rodriguez is in with us already. Hello, Taryn. You can interact back and forth with us that way. And now, it's been a long time since we have had a guest here on Chi-Town Weekly. I used to do it pretty darned regularly, that we'd have guests on here, but it's been a little bit. We are well past due. So, with the NFL Combine upon us and really getting into the draft nitty-gritty, we're due. And he was very kind and gracious to offer up to the entire station, hey, if anybody ever wants to talk draft prospects, hit me up. I decided to take him up on that. You can hear him every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio, the host of Sin City Sports, talking all things Las Vegas. Of course, his Raiders, also the Aces. We had a lot of fun back and forth last season in the WNBA season between the Lady Aces and the Sky. He also is secretly hoping that a baseball team winds up out there in the Vegas area at some point. Who knows? Maybe the Athletics will wind up out there. You can find him on Twitter at Kayle_Henderson. Kayle Henderson. Kayle, how are you doing tonight, good sir?
Great. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for having me on, man.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you said yes. You know, you threw it out there and it was, well, I need help at the combine. Who do we bring in? Kayle offered. Let's get this going. So, the NFL Combine, we had it going. The big bombshell, of course, came out right out of the gate that Jalen Carter was a search warrant for his arrest for the Georgia police. Don't want to get into the legalities of it because it's all a very, very, very fluid situation. He leaves the combine, works it out with the police, comes back to the combine. Just looking at the football perspective, is he basically untouchable now for teams, or how does that all work?
So right now he's being charged with reckless driving and racing, right? They're trying to find out the severity of how involved he was in the fatal crash of two people. And when you hear that, and when that drops right before the scouting combine, your thoughts are, dude, like, did this guy just ruin his life? Like, immediately, I think people want to go into that point. I think what we need to be careful with is, like, two people passed, and we really need to show respect to that. So it isn't just about Jalen Carter, but respect to that. It is where's Jalen Carter mentally? Is he touchable? Right now, until we know more, I don't know if he gets drafted, man. Like, he's probably the best player in this draft. He's the top prospect in my opinion. But after this, it's one of those things where I don't know if a team's going to be willing to risk a draft pick on a guy when they don't know his future, especially if there's anything enhanced as far as if it's further than just reckless driving and racing. If they come up with evidence that makes them believe he was a huge reason why the fatalities happen, we're talking manslaughter or vehicular manslaughter. I don't know, man. Right now, I think it'd be a tough sell to owners to spend a first-round draft pick or a top 5 draft pick or any draft pick on a guy when you don't necessarily know what his future is at this moment.
Yeah, and that's very well said that really this is a story about two very young people losing their lives, and we should not lose sight of that. It's very easy to do because it's sports and we all love our football and that's how it goes. But that's very appropriate to remind everybody that, yeah, this is a story of two very young men in their early 20s lost their life in a street race. Jalen Carter, it's interesting that he came back to the combine. I'm surprised that his agents didn't suggest otherwise to him, but I agree with you that I think for right now, you almost want to leave him to the side and move away from him in the draft, at least let his legal proceedings play out so you know what's going on. That has huge ramifications for the Bears because to this point, a lot of the theory and thinking has been, well, you know, you want to take one of those two defensive players, either Anderson or Carter, trade down to 4, let the Colts and the Texans take quarterbacks, let the Cardinals take whomever they're going to take, Anderson or Carter, and then you take the other one that they don't take, the Cardinals don't take. Now that Carter, at least for now, you would think is off the table, that changes the strategy in a huge way for the Bears. So now you can think about anything. You can think about trading to 2, to 4 with your Raiders at 7, maybe the Falcons at 8, Panthers at 9. So is there a quarterback now, because with you being a Raiders guy, Kayle, is there a quarterback that came out of this that it's, oh man, that's somebody that I want to see moving up in order to make sure that my team gets?
Well, yeah, I think the low hanging fruit is C.J. Stroud. I think he impressed most people in the scouting combine. And then honestly, for me, I don't really care about the underwear Olympics very much. I think it's great. You get to see people run around. You get to see how fast they are, how big they are. Like for example, it was wonderful watching Darnell Washington with the group of tight ends. He looked like a man among boys. Right, like those types of things are really cool because you really get to see what kind of shape these guys really are in. But when you look at like film, CJ Stroud is the best quarterback in this draft. Bryce Love is, I should say Bryce. I'm saying it right, correct? All of a sudden, I'm second guessing myself. Bryce Young. Oh my God, Bryce Love was the running back from Stanford. Oh, apologies. Bryce Young, he's also low hanging fruit because of his body of work right at Alabama. But both of these, like, let's be real, both of these guys had nothing but NFL talent surrounding them. So they should look good. But I think the tell for me and why I put CJ above everybody else right now is the way he played against Georgia. I think that game against Georgia was just lights out, man. He couldn't have done anything more for that football team to win. Legitimately, all the kicker had to do was what the kicker's supposed to do and make a field goal. And they're tied and possibly playing for a national championship bid. And I think they beat TCU too. I really do. I think Ohio State was that good. So CJ Stroud's the low hanging fruit. I guess if you're hoping a team wants to jump up and grab him so you can amass a bunch of draft picks. But I'm with you. I think the reality is the best case scenario for the Bears would be to trade spots with the Texans, find a couple rounds in this draft where the Texans pick before the Bears and then trade those spots as well, right? Because you're not really going to get a ton moving from 1 to 2 as far as the draft scale is concerned. But if you can trade from 1 to 2 and then gain a couple mid-round picks, maybe even a couple of mid-round picks in the future by swapping spots and still get Will Anderson, who I think is your guys' probably top prospect at this point after the Jalen Carter situation. Well, yeah, he's almost a must, Adam. I look at it like if you guys don't take him at 2, the Cardinals are going to take him at 3.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance the Cardinals were going to take him at 3 anyway. And now with the Jalen Carter situation, oh yeah, if you trade any further back than 2, you wave Will Anderson goodbye. So in that case, because it was interesting, the Bears general manager Ryan Poles talked with Peter King and basically boasted that he knows he could get an additional first-round pick in 2024 and 2025 right now for trading the number 1 overall pick this year. Now, we all know this is lying season. People put things out there sometimes just to you shake the bushes and see what comes out. But obviously, if he's being truthful there's no way a trade from 1 to 2 is bringing in a haul like that. Let's just take pace at his face value right there. You're obviously trading back further down. Who are some
at least
edge
4?
rush? Yeah.
I think the Colts are that idealistic, like they're the team that's itching for a quarterback. They're out of the car sweepstakes because we know what happened with him today. And Jimmy Garoppolo isn't going to scratch the itch that the Colts need. The Colts to me are the number 1 team I see trading up to that number 1 spot for you with you guys. And that's where you guys get those 2 first-round picks. I think the Colts are desperate enough to do that. And the Bears do hold the power there. So that would be like their second best scenario. I think the Carolina Panthers are another team that are really desperate for a young quarterback. They have a really good defense. They have playmakers. They have a rebuild offensive line. They're currently going through some cap issues. Trading up from 9 to 1 would give you guys those 2 extra first round picks plus the number 9 pick and maybe even a 3rd round pick this year because they have multiple 3rd round picks. But the Raiders, I don't know if they're a possibility. It could happen, but I think the Raiders have so many damn holes that it wouldn't behoove of the Raiders to trade up at this time. Like they just don't know what they're doing. I have no faith in them right now, to be honest with you, man. That's the cynicism in me. With the way things turned out last year with all the talent they had and the 7-10 season, the Raiders could do it. And I know the Raiders fan base wants that to happen. Just don't see it happening at this time or this year. I feel like we're in a rebuild mode now.
Makes sense. So let's take Will Anderson off the board for the Bears then. Who are some other edge rushers in this class that you like, and they don't necessarily need to be first-round guys. I've seen Lucas Van Ness from Iowa. I've seen his name a lot. He's kind of intriguing to me because he happens to be dating the sister of the Bears tight end Cole Kmet. So you could have a potential brother-in-law situation there. There's a bunch of guys that I've seen in the second and third round whose names pop up. Is this really a good edge rushing class, or is some of that being overblown because edge rushing is so important?
I think you hit the nail on the head, man. The two most important things right now in football are the quarterback position and the pass rusher, right? Because who's going to derail the quarterback when they're on fire, right? That's the equalizer. Honestly, look at the last 3 years. I think we've seen more defensive players picked in the first round the last 3 years than we've seen offensive players, and there's a reason for that. Like, teams are trying to figure out ways to compete against these scores. And if we're being real, look at the scores the last 2 years. Scores have gone down a little bit. Like, believe it or not, the average points per week scored have actually gone down because of the number of draft picks that are being spent on the defensive side of the ball. So yeah, I do think that the defensive end position is a bit overblown. When you talk about pass rushers, Tyree Wilson's the low-hanging fruit. They're a first rounder. He's probably the second best edge rusher. He's super fast, man, really explosive. We don't have a ton of tape on him because he's Texas Tech. We don't know a lot about him, but if I say this, man, if Daniel Jeremiah has him in the top 10, there's a reason. Daniel Jeremiah knows this stuff when it comes to scouting prospects. So he's another one. Like, if you can't get Will Anderson and you don't want to take the risk on Jalen Carter, if you can trade back to those two teams we talked about, like the Panthers or the Raiders, I think you could land Tyree Wilson. I don't think what's being talked about enough is these corners too, Adam. I think the corners are like Christian Gonzalez is a stud. He's an absolute stud. Devin Witherspoon, you should know him pretty well because he's in Illinois. He's an absolute stud too. Like, he's your Lovie Smith type guy, man. Like, the one of them guys that was easily, Lovie recruited him. There's no way he didn't recruit him. And look at what happened with Nate Hobbs, who's with the Raiders now. Like, those guys knew how to find defensive back talent because of that Tampa 2 system they ran for years. Devin Witherspoon's a stud as well. Looking at, like, I don't know, let's see if we can find Joey Porter Jr. probably be a great fit for the Bears. He's not overly fast, but he's a son of a former NFL player. Joey Porter, Steelers player, infamous. Everybody knows who Joey Porter is. This is going to be a high football IQ type kid that you could get in the late top 10, or if, like, let's say a team from outside the top 10 wants to trade up to 1. I'd still take it if I was the Bears. If you're going to get all that big of a haul, you have your quarterback, right? Now it's time to start building around him. So there's so many things to look at, man. Keelan White out of Georgia Tech, he's gotten a lot of attention. But honestly, man, I'd say if you're going to trade out of the top 10, if the Bears are going to trade out of the top 10, they go for a tackle. If they're staying inside the top 10, you're looking for the best defensive player.
All right, so let's run with a couple of those there then here. Kayle Henderson of Sin City Sports joining us. Let's go offensive line for a minute. A guy that really intrigues me is Peter Skoronski from Northwestern. Technically, he's very sound as an offensive lineman. Might be the most technically sound guy in this class. Measurables, though, everybody makes a huge deal about his arms. He doesn't have the reach of a typical standard NFL tackle, so you might have to kick him into guard. Fortunately for the Bears, they have needed both tackle and guard. So what do you think of Skoronski? Is he somebody worth taking potentially in the top 10, or because he's almost certainly going to be a guard, do you need to wait to take him because of the value of the position?
I mean, I think he has great size for a tackle. I don't know if he has great size for a left tackle, right? Because you do want that length against edge rushers, especially if you're going to have a right-handed quarterback. I would probably, if it were me and I was drafting him, I'd probably see if he would fit at right tackle to start because of the length issues. But he's an excellent run blocker. He's quick. I mean, he's quick out of his stance. He's got some speed. He does an excellent job in pass pro. And he's a Northwestern grad, or he's a Northwestern player. Those guys don't land in Northwestern for no reason. They're intelligent players. They're intelligent people. That's just, and honestly, if we're being real, like, we got to look at the track record. Like, he's following Rashawn Slater. Like right now, Northwestern's turning into left tackle U.
Yeah.
They just keep, they seem to churn out tackles. So I don't know if I'd take him in the top 10. I'm more of a fan of, Paris Johnson or Broderick Jones as far as what we're looking at from like an ideal size, weight, athleticism type thing. Paris Johnson's probably fits the mold for me. But yeah, I think that Peter Skronsky is more of a right tackle because of the length issues, but watch him get drafted somewhere and he proves us all wrong, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's what these guys usually do when they're drafted in the top 10 and they got a pedigree like this guy does. I would like to see what he does against competition because I don't think he's near as good as Rashawn Slater was. But yeah, it would be interesting to see who bites on him because I still think that it wouldn't surprise me if Paris goes before Peter.
It wouldn't to me either, just because Paris is somebody is going to play left. The position. With Skaranci, there is that question of, is he a left tackle? Probably not. Is he a right tackle? Maybe. Is he a guard? Perhaps. You just don't know. So I think you're right there with Paris Johnson. It seems very likely that he could go first. How about on the defensive line? Brian Brees is somebody that a couple of years ago scouts were really, really high on. Life has hit this kid hard. He was hurt. He's had family members pass away. His play on the field has struggled, but it's not because the kid's bad. It's because life has smacked him upside the head. So you've got him. Then you've also got and I'm going to say his name wrong, Clowney, the defensive tackle, who was running almost as fast as the wide receivers were in his 40 times. Taking Jalen Carter off the board for a second because of the problems, are there other 3-technique D tackles that you like out of this class to go high?
I think Brian Brees, you're right. I think he got hit with some unfortunate stuff that happened. And I feel for the guy. Like, sometimes life just hits you in the face, especially when you're a highly touted athlete. And there's expectations that come with Clemson, man, because they were churning out defensive players left and right for the NFL. So I feel for that guy. I think he's a first round talent. I don't know if he'll be one of those guys that's available for you guys in the top 10. Like, he actually, Brian, because of his circumstances, and he does flash on film, stuff like that. It's just the lack of consistency, right? And then the injury issue. I could totally see him going early in the second. He could be one of those guys that has a first round grade, but we always see guys with first round grades fall to the second, and it's just because of happenstance. And then watch him be an all pro. This type of stuff happens to those guys. Maybe it's a chip that he needs or a chip that he receives, but I would say, because there's just not a lot. I don't think there's that many defensive tackles. I mean, you could talk about Cansey out of Pittsburgh, right? I think he's a solid guy. I just don't think there's as many defensive tackles in this draft, top heavy defensive tackles, as there was last year. I think you see far more athletic edge rushers, like the Nolan Smiths of the world, like you noted about guys that have track speed. Like, the dude ran, I think it was 4.4 something, and he's like 260 pounds or 250 pounds. He's an edge rusher. Like, what? What is this guy doing running a 4.4?
That's
kids
terrifying.
Don't make any sense. Yes, they don't make any sense these days. So I apologize. 4.39 was his official. His 10-yard split was 1.52. And his vertical jump was a 41.5-inch vert, but most impressively, which is what I tend to judge people's athleticism on, is the broad jump, because it really shows you about their explosiveness. 10 foot 8 inches, this kid jumped. He's 6'2", about 240, so he's an undersized pass rusher. He's probably, like, because the Bears run a 3-4, don't they?
They've switched over to a cover 2 now. Eberflus switched them over to a 4-3 base.
Okay, so he might be like one of those Von Miller type guys. Maybe they want him to put on some weight, but he's just going to use his speed to be that prototypical edge rusher. I would probably say that a Nolan Smith The guy I'm describing is probably more of a 3-4 edge rusher because of his ability and how fast he is. They're probably going to want him out there on the edge, running back and forth or running people down, or maybe even covering tight ends from time to time if he's got that skill set. But I would say the defensive tackle class, it's just not as deep as it was last year in those first couple rounds. You could definitely tell that there's been an uptick in edge rushers, DBs, and there's definitely like tight ends are another position, man, where I wouldn't, if I was the Bears, I wouldn't be afraid to go that route either. Eventually, like there's so many really good tight ends in this draft. It's so deep. You can get a really good tight end probably in the mid rounds.
Yeah, it's one of those positions where you're not necessarily seeing a lot of them round 1 or maybe even round 2, but you get round 3, round 4, round 5, and it's, hey, wow, there's a really good player sitting here. Yeah, why not? I'll just take a talented tight end. Why not? Everybody needs one. That edge rusher you're describing, I mean, that sounds to me like a velociraptor. You just drafted a velociraptor to be on your team. I'll take 2 of those, please. You know, what defense can't benefit from having that?
I hear you, and again, I think Von Miller. Like Von Miller was considered an undersized pass rusher coming out of college, and look what he's done over his career. Like the guy had tree trunks for legs. He had explosiveness that left tackles just couldn't keep up with. Most right tackles aren't going to keep up with that type of speed and explosiveness, and that almost kind of lets you pick on the left tackle in a sense where if you have one of those bigger traditional defensive ends, they're going to beat up on that left tackle all game and let that dude on backside do what he's got to do. Back to the defensive lineman, like I think Keanu Benton out of Wisconsin is somebody that we could talk about here in the near future. He's probably a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Motzie Smith out of Michigan, another 2nd or 3rd round pick. So the Bears don't have to reach, man. Like they're going to have plenty of picks, especially if they pull off a trade. They're going to have additional picks where they can go and get these guys that they'll be able to find value on. Gervin Dexter out of Florida, 320-pound guy. I mean, I'm sure any team would love to have a one technique guy like that, just chilling on the nose tackle position, taking up double teams. No one's talking about it enough, but DJ Dale out of Alabama for some reason is being projected for round 4, and he was highly productive for Alabama for years.
I mean, that system right there, just Alabama defense, SEC defense, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Bama, heck, even Florida, you get those schools. I'll take players from that pedigree. All right, Kayle, unfortunately, we got to wrap this up here. Where can everybody find you? Where can everybody hear you here on IE Sports Radio?
Yeah, we're Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. In the Central, that's 8 p.m., right? Because daylight savings time and all that stuff right now.
9
anyway,
o'clock 9 o'clock in the Central. But yeah, who's counting?
Well, I guess if you're in Arizona, never mind. Yeah, Vegas, you're 100% spot on. There's a 2-hour difference. You got me there. 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We talk all things Vegas sports, and you are right. I'm hoping for a Major League Baseball team soon, but our focus right now is on the Golden Knights. We're definitely cheering them on because they're still first in the Pacific Division. They're hanging on by a thread, by a game, but they're dealing with some injuries. Just pulled off a big trade. We'll see how that works out. What are your thoughts on that trade, by the way?
When I saw that Jonathan Quick got traded to Columbus, I had to pick up my phone. I just wanted to go, what? Why in the expletive is Jonathan Quick going to Columbus? That makes no sense. Columbus is horrible. And then a day later it was, now he's in Vegas. Okay, this all makes sense. The Kings didn't want to trade Quick to a division rival. Okay, this all makes sense now. Here we go. I like the move for Vegas. Quick isn't having a great season this year. Father Time is catching up to him, but he had a resurgent year last year. And you know that come April, come May, he knows how to stop pucks in the postseason. He knows how to step up when the lights get bright.
Yeah, this was definitely a long game chess piece for this season, wasn't it, by the Golden Knights? And it wouldn't surprise me with the way, as aggressive as this Golden Knights team has been with acquiring players, it wouldn't surprise me if they called Columbus, said, hey, go get this guy and we'll hit you back. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a maneuver of all maneuver, Adam, but like, that's the kind of stuff I would expect from this GM with the way that they've conducted transactions over the first 5 years of the Vegas Golden Knights. But yeah, that's where you guys can find us, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Spreaker Radio. You can find me on my personal Twitter at Kayle_Henderson. You can find our show at SinCity_IESR, where we talk all things Vegas. And honestly, man, I really appreciate you inviting me out, dude. This invite's open to anybody at IE Sports Radio, but I can say I really enjoy your show. I think you do some of the best jobs. Like you got the best radio voice, in my opinion, on the team, and it's really nice to hear you talk about Chicago and hockey.
Well, thank you, Kayle. I appreciate it, and thank you for coming on. I enjoy this. We could literally, I'd be very happy doing this for the entire hour. Unfortunately, I have other things in store for tonight that I have to get to. Kayle Henderson, Sin City Sports. Check him out every Tuesday night. You will not be disappointed. He has a ton of fun. Football, hockey, college, even diving into the wonderful world of the WNBA when the time is right. Check him out on Twitter, on IE Sports Radio, Tuesday nights, 9 o'clock Central. We are going to take a quick break. On the flip side, saying goodbye sucks. It just does. I prepped myself as much as I possibly could. It's time. We have to bid adieu to Showtime here in Chicago. We'll do that on the other side of this break. You are listening to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Kayle Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Kayle Henderson, at Kayle_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Some say that Indiana is just a flyover state. Flatlands and cornfields, barns and country roads. What if I told you Indiana is the crossroads of America? What if I told you in all other states, basketball is just basketball? In Indiana, basketball is life. Crowded high school basketball gyms on a Friday night, and every barn with a basketball rim and a frayed, worn-out net. If you're interested in the heartbeat of America, and if you're interested in sports, if you have Hoosier running through your veins, the Crossroads Pod with Aaron X is made for you. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Each and every week, the Crossroad Pod covers all of Indiana sports. The pride of the horseshoe of the Indianapolis Colts. The blue-collar, bold swagger of the Indiana Pacers. The relentless pursuit of the sixth banner for the Indiana Hoosiers. The swing of the hammer of the Purdue Boilermakers. The swoop of the Cardinals of Ball State. The summoning of the echoes of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The growl of the Bulldogs of Butler. The intensity of an Indiana fever. The chop of the Indianapolis Indians. At the Crossroads Pod, if it is Indiana, we've got you covered. More than cornfields, more than country back roads. The Crossroads of America. Join me, Aaron X, every week. It's nothing but net.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Once again, huge thank you to Kayle, Henderson, and Sin City Sports for hanging out with us there in that first segment, breaking down some NFL prospect tape, talking shop about some different guys that are going to be available in the NFL draft. Seriously, check out Kayle's show every Tuesday night. He does a fantastic job. 9 o'clock Central, Sin City Sports. You will be entertained. I promise you. You will have a good time in there. He does a great job interacting with the chat room. Also, speaking of interacting with the chat room, not only is Taryn Rodriguez there, Larry B and Mike Pat hopping into the chat. Good evening, guys. Yeah, Mike, you definitely want to go back and listen to that first segment. We had a good time there talking about some different prospects and some different just ideas of what the Bears might do, what Ryan Poles might do with that huge first pick for the Bears. All right. I have delayed this as much as I can. The Blackhawks may not have won a Stanley Cup in nearly 8 years. The dynasty has most certainly been over for some time, but it officially died last Tuesday when general manager Kyle Davidson officially traded star winger Patrick Kane to the New York Rangers for draft prospects, for draft picks. And frankly, it doesn't matter what he got back in return for the trade. It was never going to feel enough to fans, certainly not to this fan. Looking at it objectively, he got about as good as he could. He got a second-round pick that has the potential to turn into a first-round pick either next year or the year after. I've gotten a couple of opportunities to do this in my couple of years now doing the show. Patrick Kane, I know that you probably won't ever hear this, but thank you. Thank you for everything you did while you were in Chicago. For teaching a new generation of fans, myself included, that hockey could be fun. That it didn't have to simply be cheap kids with an owner that didn't want to spend money and hanging on to tradition. That just because you were young didn't mean that you weren't worth watching. I was in college when Patrick Kane made his NHL debut. And I've talked about this on the Neutral Zone before, but I don't know if I've talked about it here. While I knew what hockey was and I had watched hockey games before, I got into hockey for probably the strangest reason. I had been asked to be a referee for intramural sports in college, and that included floor hockey. And while I understood some basic rudiments of the game, I wanted to understand how to perform my role as a referee better. So I turned on hockey games to watch the refs, to figure out where to stand so that I could see things better. Fortunately, the Blackhawks were on television again after a long time of the Wirtz family not wanting to put them on there for fear that might somehow deter fans from coming to the games. And after watching a couple games and really focusing in on the refs, there was this kid that my eyes couldn't stop watching. First of all, there was just so much youth on the team. 19 was young. 2 was young. The goalie was young. But my eyes couldn't stop watching number 88. This bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, blonde-haired kid from Buffalo, New York, who was skinny as a rail. Skinny as I was when I started college. Not by the time I was watching hockey, because I discovered I like to eat in college. But this kid that looked like if just one of those defensive men would just run him into the boards hard enough, he might snap in half. But there was one problem. They could never catch him. It didn't matter what they did. 88 would figure out how to skate around, skate past, or just simply disappear out of thin air and suddenly be 20 feet away with the puck on his stick right before he put it in the back of the net. And I couldn't help but be excited every time. I would get done with class at night and I would race back to my dorm to turn on the hockey game. Now, I'd done this for Bears games, sure. Those are played on Sunday afternoons. Of course, you turn your calendar around for the football game. But to do this for a hockey game, the thought had never crossed my mind before. And I began to learn about this game. This amazing, it had all the things I loved about football. The hard hitting, the crunches, the teamwork, that even though you were going out, when you were out there, you could be the most dominant player, but you couldn't do it by yourself. You had to have 3 other lines on offense that were able to roll out there and work as effectively with you. That there, you couldn't allow it to be such a big drop off between you and your teammates, that they had to come up to you. You had to help bring them up to you. That I fell in love. And it stuck with me. It became that second sport. It became that football may be in its off season, but that just means that the hockey season is gearing up. And then I started watching in October and November and realizing that early season hockey could be just as good as the stuff in January and February and March and April. Thank you, Patrick, for allowing us to watch you grow up in every sense of that word. When you started off as that scrawny little toothpick that would pull magic acts on the ice, and then off the ice we'd hear about, oh no, what has Patrick done now? That dumb young kid. He literally crawled from bar to bar in Madison, Wisconsin. He and some teammates grabbed a bunch of people and got in the back of a limousine and were having a party while driving around in Vancouver. Oh no. What has Patrick done now? To now, you're a father. You get on the ice in warm-ups, and the first thing you do is wave to your son to be sure that he catches your eye and you catch his before every game, and to see his little face light up. You let us in as much as you could, and obviously there were things that you didn't want to let us in too, that we found out anyway. A few memories before we go. Of course, 2010 in Philadelphia, that June night in Philadelphia, Game 6, where you won the cup. And one of the strangest goals anybody will ever see, where nobody actually knew that the puck went in the net, but you did. You got that puck wrapped around the pole. And I'd heard the expression of a yard sale in hockey, but I'd never really understood what it meant. It was one of those old people sayings that, okay, I don't know what he's talking about. A yard sale? Sure, fine, whatever. Now I know exactly what that means. Every piece of equipment that was able to come off of you without extra effort, the stick, the gloves, the helmet, strewn on the ice as you celebrated the goal that only you knew you scored, while everybody else in the arena and on television was waiting for some kind of confirmation, you were already down on the other end of the ice, celebrating with your goalie, informing the world that the Blackhawks had won the Stanley Cup. All the way to scoring the insurance goal that guaranteed that the Blackhawks would clinch the cup at home against the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2015 with some of the most gorgeous, beautiful tic-tac-toe passing and executing. If you want to describe that era of Blackhawks hockey, just watch that play of the Patrick Kane goal in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals. My personal favorite recollection, I've been able to go to 4 Blackhawks games. Only one victory, though. And that's the one that I want to talk about. It was actually, ironically enough, it was 10 years ago yesterday. My Facebook notification reminded me, it came up in my memories yesterday, that it was 10 years ago to the day yesterday. I got to experience my first ever road game. I went to Detroit with a couple of very good friends of mine to watch the Red Wings Blackhawks game. One of the most exciting games I've ever seen. Back and forth for the entire game. Nothing going into the third period. And then with the Blackhawks down 1, Patrick Kane on a rebound, loose change, just being in the right place at the right time, got the puck in to tie it and force overtime. And then it made it to a shootout. And then, Patrick, you did what only you could do. And some people have tried imitating it. Nobody has come close. Poor Jimmy Howard. Poor Jimmy Howard had to try and stop a Patrick Kane shootout attempt. Instead of going fast, you went slow. Back, forth. Left, right. Left, right. Fake, fake. Put some more weight into it. Now you've committed? Pull the puck back and put it into the top of the net. A beautiful, beautiful goal. Fortunately, my friends are Red Wings fans, but they let me pick the seats. They have since told me they'll never let me do that again because we were sitting surrounded by Blackhawks fans and on the end where that shootout goal took place. I'm so glad I got to see that as close as I could in person from the upper rafters of the old arena there in Detroit that's no longer there. Thank you, Patrick. I know this is not the way that anybody wanted it to end. But thank you for the memories. 1,200 games, over 400 goals. You helped a lot of us find a new sport. So thank you. And for the rest of this season, at least, I know there's going to be a special place for me anytime I sit down and see the New York Rangers play. I'm going to be keeping my eyes out for number 88 in the blue, white, and red in New York. Showtime has come to Broadway. Give them their money's worth, Patrick. All right. I know that we are very close on time. We are going to take a very quick break. We're gonna reset this a little bit before we turn things over to Taryn Rodriguez and Set Point. You are listening to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, everybody? This is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And indeed, you'll be able to hear Taryn Rodriguez coming up right here in just a couple of minutes here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. So do not go anywhere. He will be breaking down all things happening in the collegiate volleyball world. Might be some pro stuff on the line as well. He brought up in the chat while I was talking about Patrick Kane, he brought up that the Loyola Chicago men's program is yet undefeated in conference play. They took on Purdue Fort Wayne over the weekend and won 3-2. So we've got some excellent collegiate volleyball action happening right here in Chicago. So definitely stick around and hear Taryn talk about all of that coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Before we get out of here tonight, I do want to set the stage a little bit and preview a little bit. We've got the Big Ten basketball tournament right here in Chicago happening starting on Wednesday. It tips off. Both Illinois and Northwestern are participating. Illinois is a 7 seed. Northwestern earned the double bye. They will be the number 2 seed in the conference. They get to wait all the way until Thursday. Did I get that right? Thursday? No, Friday to take on. We've got Illinois on Thursday, and then Northwestern will be waiting on Friday. We could have Illinois versus Northwestern right away out of the gate, as if Illinois wins its match, they will take on the Wildcats in that one. So should be all kinds of great stuff keeping up with. Next week, a little bit of programming notes, and then we'll get out of here and turn things over to Taryn. A couple of programming notes here. The plan, as I've mentioned on the show before, my wife and I, we are expecting baby number 2. Due date is coming up this month. Really, it could be any date. Plan is that there will be a show next week, but then after that, it'll probably be a few weeks before I do a show again. There definitely will not be a show on March 20th. Probably won't have a show again until at least April. So plan is right now, there will be a show next week. And with that in mind, going to have a guest on next week. He's been on the program before. Matt Garner will be breaking down some bracketology. We'll have the full NCAA bracket. Matt has been on the show before and given us previews before. Not going to do a preview this year, but he'll help break down the actual bracket. We'll talk about how good or poor of a job that the committee did in setting the actual bracket for everybody, and then we will break that down. So you want to tune in next week. Matt Garner will be with. He'll help us fill out all of our NCAA tournament brackets. That'll be right away next week. After that, it'll be at least April before we have another episode at that. Thank you again to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised, Emlo Straight, Gate, and Anonymous. Go over to our website, iesportsradio.com. Our link to our Patreon site is there. Starts at just $5 a month. Be sure you can hop on and donate. Thank you to Kayle Henderson of Sin City Sports for hopping on earlier tonight. Thank you to Larry for all the hard work that he does behind the scenes at the station. Also for hopping into the chat room. Mike Pat hopping into the chat, and Taryn Rodriguez. He is coming up right after us with Set Point. You want to be sure to stick around for that. Until next time, for IE Sports Radio, I am Adam Karnick. This is Chi-Town Weekly. Thank you so much for coming and spending some time listening, whether it's live here tonight on Monday or later on in the week as a podcast. Really appreciate it. We will see you next time.